Each of us has a torch, a passion burning inside that ignites our motivation. When it's fed, the fire spreads and helps those around us keep their own torches shining bright. Our combined light can keep any monster at bay. We bring together people from around the world, sparks of light and glowing embers with enlightening stories of kindness, success, and overcoming adversity, fanning the flames of love, compassion, and positivity, sharing their light to help those struggling in darkness. I'm John Verico, and this is Share Your Fire. Hello and welcome. I am so excited that we have another episode of our Share Your Fire podcast, and I am so delighted to have this special guest with me today. I had the pleasure of working with this young woman many years ago, and I knew that she was going to do wonderful, great things. She is an Air Force veteran, the mother of 5, the author of Business Not Battle. She helps organizations, primarily nonprofit, mission-focused, heart-centered organizations, to be able to function and achieve their mission. And I call her the Queen of Giving Back. So, hi, Elise Woodworth. Welcome.
I love that nickname. I'm going to keep it.
Just before we started recording, I asked her if it was okay if I referred to her as that, and she just said, sure. Elise, how are things going?
Really well, John, and I'm so excited to be here with you today and glad that light your fire, share your fire. I think the idea is so exciting, and I really am glad to be able to help grow this mission.
Well, thank you. I couldn't wait to get you on the show. I reached out specifically to invite you because, I know your heart. I know where the things that you like to do and how you help others. And that focus, I think, is so important. There are so many people out there who are coaches, who focus on businesses, who focus on executive leadership. And all of that stuff is important. And I know you do some of that as well. And you help them to create kind of a better mission-focused, exciting work environment so that their team stays engaged and all of that stuff. But there's so much more to that, and especially when you're working with the nonprofit sector, where the mission is more important than the bottom line. And there are so many nonprofits I've worked with too over the years. They're so focused on their mission at times that they don't always get the business side of things right, and they wind up floundering or having a hard time, staying afloat. And you have created a wonderful program that actually helps. So let's talk a little bit about that and kind of what you bring to the table besides this energy.
Sure. That's why I say I bring business to nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits, like you've mentioned, have so much passion, have so much interest in bridging a particular gap. They've identified a need in their community. They've identified a lack of service or a lack of opportunity. And they're putting together a program, often building the program as it's operating. So often.
Build the plane while flying.
Build the plane while it's flying. And like you said, they have that passion. But so often the business fundamentals are overshadowed by that passion. And so when I started my company, it was in 2014. And I also, around that time, started as a board member. So I was starting my board member journey as I'm starting my business. And what I'd learned from my time in the Air Force was that I really liked helping grow leaders. I liked being able to take a younger airman, someone inexperienced with leadership, recognize the capabilities that they had, and give them the opportunity to practice those, to try it out, and to see what that looked like. And so when I started my business, any good business would have a mission. And so I set my mission to ignite tomorrow's leaders, inspire today's, and help grow teams that will shape history. Now that has taken on a lot of different focuses over the last 12 years. And it was 4 years ago that I realized I knew enough to write the book, Write Business, Not Battle, and focus it on helping nonprofit board members, particularly, engage, ignite their fire, and become the leaders their organizations need. Often you have a founder who is really passionate about something, and that founder will attract people that want to help. But if they're not engaged in the right way, aware of their role as a leader in the organization, it tends to create more of what I call these battle situations where maybe we're not focused on the same mission, or we're not aligned in the way that we communicate, or with our strategic
people
goals.
get on boards for nonprofits for different reasons.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, some people do it for the esteem. Some people do it for the title. Some people do it because they're passionate about it.
And some because we're a friend. Like, I'll help a friend out.
There you go. That's true too. Yeah, there's so many ways that people get involved. But then, when it comes down to, there are some boards that actually do the work of the nonprofit. There are other boards that simply support the work of the nonprofit, and each of those boards kind of function in different ways. But each of them need to have board members that are engaged and behind the mission.
Absolutely. And so that's what I help bring. I help bring some of the business fundamentals, the leadership fundamentals, to a board, to an organization. And people will say to me, well, how'd you get into nonprofit work? When were you an executive director? Where's your education? And it's, I came in as a board member. So I came in with that experience and wanting to apply what I knew about business and leadership to the nonprofit space and the passion that they have.
And being a board member, you can see those things. You can see and experience it.
Oh, I still do. I will sit in on various board meetings just as an advisor, and I see it happen. It's almost a visual, okay, they didn't get that. Like, we need to explain what that means and how it connects. And it's just really interesting to be able to do that.
It's fascinating. I've been on multiple boards myself over the years. I mean, I have what my wife calls helium arm. So whenever if somebody needs some help, or can you be on this board? Can you serve on this? The other hand goes up. And
that's why we remember to call John.
This is I know, because John still has a problem saying that. I have problems with the N word. I just can't get my mouth to say it half the time. People out there listening to this, don't get any ideas. That doesn't mean I'm going to come jump and help you with your projects. I am trying to learn how to say no. But it is so true that when people are serving on a board, and some of them, like I said, the board members actually do all the work. And there may be an executive director who kind of runs the business aspects, but the members actually run the programs. And it's really interesting to see how the drive and the passion can stay with them, but when you start having business problems or other things start to happen, then people start to lose that connection. And so, it takes somebody like you to come in and relight that fire.
And that's one of the things, this is my number one tip to any nonprofit listening, anyone leading a board or doing any sort of work like that. Always start with the mission. Start your meeting with the mission. Restate it every time. Doesn't matter how awkward it is. It doesn't matter how many times that this particular group has met. Start with the mission and stay focused on that, because everything you're about to talk about in the next hour, 90 minutes, whatever it is, needs to be able to tie back into how you're bridging that gap, how you're fulfilling that mission, and how you're moving it forward. And so that's my number one tip, that I'm always like, start with the mission. Stay mission focused.
And that is beautiful, especially since, like you said, nonprofits are the core of your community. Without the nonprofit sector, which is hard to focus on. But without the people in doing nonprofit work, so many communities would fail. So many people would, would
Slip through
have
the cracks.
challenges. What's that? Yeah, they'd fall through the cracks. I mean, there are all sorts of folks that do. I mean, I've worked with everything from rape counselors to education nonprofits to community outreach and people working with cancer patients. Could you imagine what it would be like if these people were instead money focused and wouldn't do work unless they were being paid a lot of money to do it? You really need the nonprofit sector and the volunteers who do these things in order for us to survive.
Absolutely. And it's so rewarding to give back. I think a lot of times we think of the world as busy, busy, busy. Everybody's, got a full calendar and they're running from here to there. No time for anything. And what we also...
I have an acronym for that.
Oh, what's that?
Busy means basically underserving yourself.
Oh, I like that.
And what happens, and I'm a victim of that myself, right? We wind up, whether we get involved in whatever kind of projects, whether it's whatever the focus is, whether it's earning money or whatever, we get so involved with doing all these other things for other people's purposes that we kind of start to neglect our own needs and our own ability, and so we either overcommit, or we make ourselves sick, or we ignore our health, or we ignore time with our family. We lose out on opportunities because we get so focused on doing all this other stuff.
Right. And they get lonely. And then you get lonely.
Yeah.
And you pick up your phone and you start scrolling. And what? You're not building community. You're not accomplishing anything in it.
Yeah. And what happens is people wind up getting to a point where they lose focus of the mission, and because they don't feel like they're being able to be successful at it.
And so that's one of the things that I always ask the question when I'm doing a talk or a workshop, and I'll say, what do nonprofits need? And everybody will inevitably say, because I'll be like, what are the two things? And it's more money and more people. Okay, sure, that might be the fact that you need more money to do more things, and you need people to be able to do them. But I am very specific about what I think nonprofits need, and I think they need more advocates.
Ooh.
I think they need more people that are willing to stand up, to share the mission, to carry the flag, wear the name tag, the t-shirt, whatever it is. They need more people to do that. And by being an advocate for a nonprofit, and you don't have to be a formal volunteer, you don't have to fill out paperwork or anything. One of the things I do, I share a Friday spotlight every week on LinkedIn, and I'll spotlight a different nonprofit. They're not always nonprofits I know personally or work with, but it's missions I've seen in action usually, have enjoyed being a part of their program or service, whatever it is, and I'll share that with my LinkedIn community. And it's just one way of furthering a mission for a nonprofit.
I was going to mention that, so I'm glad you brought it up. The fact that you spend a lot of time highlighting and promoting the work and advocating for the work of the nonprofit sector, which was also one of the reasons why I said, as I'm starting to get the schedule of this thing crazy filled up, I reached out to you and I said, I got to get you on before we get too busy.
I love that. Thank you.
So now I'm going to sidetrack just for a little bit, because you do something that you very rarely find that any business will do. And that's one of the reasons why I call you the Queen of Giving Back. Talk a little bit about your new policy or your new way of giving back.
Sure. I call it my stewardship fund. And I'm my own small business, right? So I have the complete latitude to do this sort of thing. But last year I made a commitment to give back 30% of all my revenue, to set aside 30% of what I brought in
That is so
to
amazingly generous.
to give back to the nonprofits I work with, whether it's someone asking for a sponsorship for an event, or needing some board training, needing some board development, but not maybe having the funds to do that. That fund allows me a number of things. It allows me to give back. And it also helps me take care of myself at the same time, because I am so passionate about helping nonprofit leaders that I just want to say, yes, let's do all of the things. And so I think it's important to have a guideline or a number. And sometimes it wiggles a little bit when I need it to. Just to allow, because I think it's so important to have leadership development for your board, to have the access to a coach for an executive director who might not have anyone else to talk to about daily operations, or some of the struggles that they're facing with their board. It's a really unique
And again, so many of
situation.
them are just focused on the mission or the work that they don't get that business side.
Yeah, and the relationship too is very unique with an executive director or a CEO hired by the board,
Yes.
hired by that board, but then responsible for all of the things, all of the reports. And this is what I see happen a lot. They'll say, oh, well, we hired an executive director to do that, to do the reporting, to do the grants applications, to
The
do
tax papers,
the outreach, to do all
yeah.
these, all the things.
All the things
And
that aren't directly mission
right.
performance.
And so what you have then are these roles that really should be on the board's plate: setting the meeting agenda, creating the slides. What are we going to talk about? Finding some of, and it varies for every organization, but a lot of times the board will assume the executive director is going to do those things. And so the executive director will do those things and do them very well. But then it's just another piece of paper to the board. Or
Yeah.
it's just another document to read
They don't have the ownership of it.
because they don't have the ownership of it. So I am a real strong supporter of improving the board director relationship, clearly defining roles for a board, and then having a president who will hold them accountable to those roles, because it's not the executive director's job.
Yeah. And you remind me of some boards I'd worked with in the past that had kind of a similar structure, and they would hire a management company that would serve in these executive director positions, and they would have somebody on staff who did marketing or whatever. But they wind up serving multiple nonprofits. And so then where does the focus happen? And are they really able to focus on the individual smaller nonprofits when they've got this nonprofit over here, which can provide them more finances?
Sure.
And so you have large, enormous international nonprofit type organizations that hire a management company, and they can afford to pay that management company to do lots of stuff. And then you've got a smaller nonprofit who may be also working with that same management company, but they don't have the budget to pay the higher end. So they're just getting a little piece of that executive director's attention. And so that's where some conflict happens for some of the smaller organizations.
And that's one of those battles. And you have to look at your mission and say, is this the right answer for our organization? Are we, as a board, that's a board's responsibility to be able to answer that. Is this where we need to be spending our time and our money, our resources? Or are there other things that we could do with that to make it a stronger organization? Maybe we hire someone part-time in our local community who knows the heartbeat
Right.
and will have a passion for paving sidewalks or whatever it is, saving trees. There are lots of different things.
There are
It's really aligning.
Yeah. And the alignment, I think, is what's really critical. There are so many people who are passionate about helping their communities or helping people who are facing adversity or whatever, the various types of things that we can get involved with, or just, being advocating for a certain profession, because a lot of those are nonprofits as well. And yet they'll get out there, they'll create a nonprofit, they'll go through the process, they'll start getting out there doing the work, but they can't get the funding, or they're not getting the board support that they need in order to keep functional. I know it's got to be a sad statistic, but do you have any idea how many nonprofits kind of start and fail, and what that rate would be? I know it's pretty sad,
because
unfortunately.
a unique thing about nonprofits, because it's a business and you file for it like anything else, but so often, even if they fail, they won't file
Oh,
that they are closing.
that they've closed the doors. Yeah.
They'll just stop. That happens a lot. So I know that it happens. I know that a lot of times, I've seen it where a business owner will say, well, if I start a nonprofit, I can get more funding. I could get a grant, or I could get sponsorships, or whatever it is. And I caution heavily against that, because the 501c3 designation is no different from running a business, having a sustainable operation that's going to keep itself going.
Yeah.
Putting that nonprofit designation on you really only changes your tax status.
Good point. Yes.
Not people's willingness to give you money. and so, and that's kind of a difficult situation or conversation to have. It's like, yes, especially working with purpose-driven individuals, there has to be a really clear business plan. And I'll say that to some potential founders, and I never hear from them again. I'll say, you need to have a really clear business plan before we have our next conversation. Like, I'd like to see how you plan to make this sustainable. And I think if there was more intentionality on creating business plans, we'd have less nonprofits, perhaps, in that big pie of all the nonprofits that have been filed for. We'd have less of those, but I feel like they'd be more impactful, because people would do the ecosystem research. They would do the analysis of the business landscape. And they'd look around and they'd see the people already in their communities that run a food bank, that run a soup kitchen, that have access to clothing or housing or any number of things. But they'd look around and they'd see these organizations, and then they'd partner. And,
Bingo.
And so often, if you're listening to this and have an idea for a nonprofit, I want you to go around and find 5 or 10 organizations doing the exact same thing as closely to your community as you can find. And then I want you to think of your idea, how you could have that be a program supporting those nonprofits.
Because
if it's not sustainable as a program, it's not going to be sustainable as its own organization.
That is a brilliant focus. There are, and I think we find this in any community, there are hundreds, thousands of nonprofits out there, some of them doing similar work, and they're all now competing for the same available donor dollars and support dollars.
Yes.
And so how many soup kitchens can we support? We can have multiple soup kitchens, but they can all be organized and work together. And
Who's
that
got
goes
Monday?
back to
Who's got Tuesday?
Yeah, but there are so many things that, and they don't have to be separate organizations. They can
Right.
all work together as one organization. Now that may seem kind of counter to the idea, but at the same time, partnering will actually get you a lot further than competing. And that's
And
why I
even
kind of
just
liked your concept of your book, right? Business, not battle.
business, right?
Yeah.
And what the way I define business is the mutually beneficial exchange of products, services, and ideas. And so often we get ideas, we get momentum in a particular direction. We're starting to get people behind us in a particular direction, and people will say, "I want to start a nonprofit." And I'll speak to the other side of this too. As an established nonprofit, I think there's almost a responsibility to continue, and it is on so many nonprofits' minds. How are we going to grow? How are we going to continue to have impact? All those things. One of the ways you could do that is simply to look around for other people trying to swim in the same direction and be open to bringing them on as a program. Be open to supporting their mission as part of your own. And as a nonprofit grows, I feel like that's an amazing way to come together to expand your own services without putting much strain on resources, and just say, yeah, we'd love to see if that program would work. Let's put together a business plan. Let's put together an idea and see if we can't build momentum under it. And then you don't have the added stress or frustration of the organizational filing for anything, right? The establishing a board, all of the things. There's so many things, and it's so expensive when it comes down. If you want to do things right, there is a price tag that comes with that people don't often see. And then how do we raise funds? How do we apply for grants? How do we do those things? But if you're already an established nonprofit, you have relationships. You have connections with the government. You have connections in the community where you're serving. And so many more opportunities come to make that program successful. And if it succeeds, great. And if it needs to become its own organization later down the line, let's be open to that. Let's not create battle where there doesn't need to be one.
It's beautiful. Not everything is a conflict, and that's where people need to remember. And also the fact that you can't do things alone. And you're not alone. There are a lot of people out there with the same mission, with the same heart, with the same devotion. And when you can partner together and work together, you can accomplish so much more. The same thing about, that's what Share Your Fire is all about, right? You've got your own motivational fire, and they've got their own motivational fire, but between the two of us, we bring both of our torches together, we can illuminate so much more.
And if we stay focused on a particular mission, if there's a mission we can both align to,
Yeah.
think of that fire and how, if you think about, we were talking about how busy people have gotten, right? And they're also lonely and distracted. And when they recognize the passion that you or I have for a particular thing, if that sparks something in them, it might be a torch they can actually pick up and carry.
I love it.
That will help them find connection, that will help them have purpose and move in a direction that's strengthening for them and their community. So that's why I think it's so important to continue to have the conversations about nonprofit partnerships, about strengthening leaders in the nonprofit sector. And I'm just so excited to be able to share that with you and your audience as well.
I love it. And thank you so much for doing that and for coming on. And before we run out of time, I'm going to put this stuff in the show notes as well. But let's put it out there for people who are only looking at audio right now. How can people get in touch with you, and where can they find information?
LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me. Elise Woodworth. You can also look up Business Not Battle. So Elise Woodworth or Business Not Battle on LinkedIn. You'll find all you need from there. And send me a DM. I'm happy to respond.
I love it. Elise, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your fire. Like I said, I really wanted to reach out because I know your passion, and there are so many nonprofits or people who are thinking along those lines who really needed to hear this, and I hope that I know that you've made a difference for them.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you again, folks. Go and listen to this a couple of times, and then catch our other episodes. We'll talk to you soon. This is Share Your Fire, and I'm John Verico, and my guest today was the fabulous Elise Woodworth, known as the Queen of Giving Back.